Today I want to have a conversation with you, so I purposely sit down. I assure you that what I share today, and I hope any day here, I'm no expert. I'm a fellow traveller, a fellow sinner, and like everybody here, we do the best we can with what we've got as people of faith. If we're entering into a conversation in the spirit of synodality, we first begin by quietening our hearts. Conversation or dialogue has been the call, as far as I know, of both Pope Francis and now Pope Leo. Through the Synod on Synodality, and now with the way of the Church being the way of synodality. That's important that we as Church, and it's very important as we as citizens of the world, enter into conversation and dialogue. And as Pope Francis would say, and Pope Leo has already said, listen. Pope Leo quoted St. Augustine about listening. Listen with your ears in your heart, not your heart in your ears. I was inspired by today's gospel. I find it somewhat puzzling in a way. It's one of those sort of puzzles in Luke's gospel. But there was a line in it that struck me, and it was the line that talked about the children of their age who knew how to deal with their own generations. That line fits into some personal research I did recently. It was research that I did on watching the news or seeing on the news one day the tragic murder of this fellow called Charlie Kirk. I have never heard of Charlie Kirk, and yet he was big news. And I was touched by the tragedy of seeing a young wife and 2 children. And then I wanted to find out who is or who was this Charlie Kirk. Now I want to be clear, my conversation today is not about Charlie Kirk. I don't wish to pursue any conversation. I want to rather open up what my research allowed me to discover for the first time in my life. I realised that he is part of a social phenomenon that's built up and works through social media. And I could say that that whole phenomenon, I won't say he, that's wrong of me, that whole phenomenon that he represents or is a part of is of the West, but I think it is universal because of the internet, smartphones. Whatever happens in one part of the world happens in the rest of the world. And I have to confess, I always say when I'm at work and I face a problem with the technology, I say, I'm an IT dummy. But that's my excuse to allow somebody else to come in. Because what I really realised through my research is I live in a bubble. And I have to get out of my bubble. Because I discovered a whole world out there made up of anybody and everybody being what's called influencers. And they use social media. They just need a phone and they set themselves up with podcasts or anything and they become influencers. This blows my mind apart. They become influencers politically, religiously, socially, whatever. And these people are rightly named influencers because they're influencing whole groups of people, whole populations. And I have nothing against that. I'm not speaking against it. But it's opened my mind up. Because part of my research was I read about a influencer in Australia being upset because she received a death threat. So I went further. I won't say what I thought, but this woman when I read her CV or her background, she's an influencer. She doesn't know anything about anything, I would think. And yet she's influencing whole populations. Now that alerts me to, if people out there, outside my bubble, are looking for the way, and many people in our world today, I believe it's a universal theme, are lost and are searching. There's a Generation Z. That's how they're named. So they're the younger generations. And I could easily say, in my world where I come from, and I think it's the same everywhere, our world is changing so much so quickly. And that what I see, at least where I come from, and what I think is happening elsewhere, but it's a very simplistic way to name it, the church is being left behind, the institutional church. But the church at the grassroots, the church of the people, is a different matter. So that I see, and once again I'm talking about back home, but that's where I can be some sort of, speak with confidence. People like me just don't go to church anymore. And so that's where I've left it. But then through this research I did, I see that those people who no longer, I've just assumed, are neutral, have no interest in anything at all to do with religion and its values, that's not right. They're searching. And they're searching out there looking to these influences on social media. But then I ask myself, who are these people? What background do they have? Are they teaching the truth? That's all the sorts of things that go through my mind. But as long as they're doing good and it's leading to good, well, fine, and that maybe is the way that people find their way to go forward. Because people in our world are searching. I live in Bangkok. For me, Bangkok is full of searchers, people searching for ultimate truths, for ways in life. And they're Thais, they're foreigners, and they come my way. Not big numbers, but people are searching. And so these influences, political, religious, whatever, they're out there and you can tune into them. But then I ask myself, I have to get out of my bubble because I believe the church is a treasure. It's precious. The theology, the traditions, the values for life and human dignity, they matter so much. But how will anybody know about it if all I do is sit in this cathedral every Sunday and preach for 10 minutes? That's what I realise. And it's not just about me. We need to get out and we need to be with people and enter into conversation and dialogue. That's the call of Pope Francis. That's the call of synodality. That's the call also of Pope Leo. He wants the world to enter into dialogue and build a world built on justice and compassion where human dignity is respected and we live in peace. But we're stuck in our bubble. It's about 1 minute to go. Generation Z challenges me because I would say, just being brutal, they left us. But Generation Z rightly challenges me. I'm wrong because they tell me and the rest of us, you've left us nothing. You destroyed everything. That's how they see it. And this is universal and everything. That's why we need a conversation. So what do? We need to enter into a conversation, a dialogue. Why open those doors in the spirit of Vatican II and go out, meet people, talk to them, listen to them. They have truth too. And preach the gospel. Those values that are treasure and are precious aren't just mine to hold and to value and then tell everybody else what I think of them. Those values are there to be shared for the sake of the world, to go out and deal with our generations in ways that they know and understand so that they too can hold the same treasure that we hold, because our legacy is not ours alone but belongs to all humanity. Our conversation is open-ended. It doesn't have an ending. So I'm going to finish there. I hope I've opened up some minds, and I hope the conversation keeps going because it has to.